That was the last thing the old man told me. His eyes were red like fire, and his voice sounded like dry leaves cracking under a shoe. I looked at the shiny key in his hand. I looked at the red Mercedes Benz parked behind him. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. My heart was beating fast. I did not care about the rule. I did not care about the warning. I just wanted the car. I grabbed the key from his hand, and that was the moment my life changed forever. But before I tell you about the car, let me tell you why I took it. My name is Obi, and I was a suffering man. For 5 years I suffered in Lagos. I had a degree from the university, but I had no job. I had no money to eat. My shoes had holes in the bottom, and whenever it rained, water would soak my socks. I was tired. I was tired of begging my friends for small change. I was tired of jumping buses and sweating under the hot sun while my mates drove past me in air-conditioned cars. One day my landlord came to my door. He did not knock. He just started shouting. He threw my bag outside. He threw my mattress on the dirty ground. The children in the compound laughed at me. They pointed fingers at Obi, the poor man. I sat on my mattress in the rain and cried. I wiped my tears and said to myself that I will not suffer again. I will do anything to be rich, anything. I heard people whispering about a man in the village called Baba Agwu. They said he could change sand to gold. I used my last money to travel to his village. The bush was thick and scary. The air smelled like burnt wood. When I entered his shrine, Baba Agwu was sitting on a mat. He did not ask me my name. He just looked at me and smiled a wicked smile. "You want the Red Benz?" I was surprised. I nodded my head. "Yes, Baba, I want to be a big man. I want them to bow when they see me." He stood up and walked to the back of the hut. He came back with a key that had a red light blinking on it. He told me the rules. He said the spirit of wealth lives in the passenger seat. He said the spirit is a jealous spirit. No woman must sit there. Not my wife, not my sister, not my mother. I thought about it. It sounded easy. I can hire a driver. I can put my girlfriends in the back seat. Why must a woman sit in the front? It is a small price to pay to stop poverty. I promise, Baba, I will never do it. He gave me the key. He told me to go back to Lagos and I would see the car. When I got back to the place where I was squatting, there it was, the Red Benz. It was shining so bright it hurt my eyes. It looked powerful. I touched the bonnet and it felt warm. I opened the door and the smell of new leather filled my nose. I sat in the driver's seat and held the steering wheel. I felt power rushing into my body. My phone beeped in my pocket. I looked at the screen. It was a bank alert. 5 million naira. I screamed with joy. I did not know then that the car was a trap. I did not know that the front seat was waiting for blood.
Life became sweet. It was too sweet. Everything changed just like magic. Because of the Red Benz, big men wanted to do business with me. I drove into big compounds and the security men would salute me as if I was the governor. I moved from the place where I was squatting to a big house in Lekki. I had AC in every room. I had a fridge full of turkey and juice. I bought shoes that cost more than my father's yearly salary. I was finally the big man I promised myself I would be. But the car was watching me. Every time I sat inside, I felt cold, even when the sun was hot. The empty seat beside me was not just empty. It felt like someone invisible was sitting there, breathing heavily, waiting for me to make a mistake. Keeping the rule was harder than I thought. People started asking questions. My friends would ask to join me for a ride, and I would tell them to sit at the back. They would laugh and ask if I was now a taxi driver. I laughed with them, but inside I was shaking. I told them the front door handle was broken. I told them I put delicate documents on the seat. I told so many lies that I started to forget which one was true. The real Wahala started with women. I met a girl named Anita. She was fine, the kind of girl that makes heads turn. We went out for dinner one night. I parked the Red Benz in front of the restaurant so everyone could see it. We ate and drank expensive wine. When we finished, we walked back to the car. Anita was smiling. She walked straight to the front passenger door and pulled the handle. My heart jumped into my throat. I screamed at her. I shouted her name so loud that people on the street turned to look at us. "Stop there," I shouted. "Do not touch that door." Anita jumped back. She looked at me with fear in her eyes. She asked me what she did wrong. I was sweating even though the night was cool. I grabbed her hand and pulled her to the back seat. I opened the back door and pushed her inside like she was a bag of rice. She started crying. She asked me if I was a ritualist. She asked me what was inside the front seat that was more important than her. I did not answer. I drove her home in silence. She blocked my number that night. I didn't care. I had my money. I had my car. That was all that mattered. Then my mother called, Mama Obi. My heart did a double beat when I saw her name on my phone. She said she was coming to Lagos to see me and to do a medical checkup. She said she missed her son. I told her to come. How could I say no to the woman who sold her wrappers to pay my school fees? But as soon as I dropped the call, fear gripped my stomach. Mama is not like Anita. Mama's old. Mama deserves honor. I drove to the park to pick her up. The Red Benz was shining. I saw Mama standing by her big Ghana Must Go bag. She looked older than the last time I saw her. Her wrapper was faded, but her smile was bright. I ran to her and hugged her. She touched my face and thanked God for blessing her son. I carried her bag and put it in the boot. Then the moment came. Mama walked to the front door. She waited for me to open it for her. My hands were shaking. I stood in front of the door and blocked it with my body. I told her to sit at the back. Mama looked at me with confusion. She asked me why she should sit at the back when she's not a small child. She asked if I was now her driver. I felt shame wash over me. I lied again. I told her the front seat belt was dangerous. I told her the airbag was faulty. Mama looked at me for a long time. She did not believe me. I saw the hurt in her eyes. She thought I had become proud. She thought I felt too big to sit beside my village mother. She slowly climbed into the back seat. She looked small and lonely in that big space. I sat in the driver's seat and looked at the empty passenger seat. The leather looked darker than usual. I felt the car humming a low, happy sound. It was happy that I chose it over my own mother. I drove home, but the silence in the car was louder than the engine. I had all the money in the world, but I felt like the poorest man on earth.
It was 2 o'clock in the middle of the night on a Tuesday when the devil came to visit. The rain was not just falling, it was beating the roof of my house like an angry drum. It was the kind of rain that swallows Lagos, the kind that turns streets into rivers and makes everyone stay inside their house. Nipa had taken the lights since afternoon, so the whole estate was dark and silent except for the noise of the thunder that shook the ground. I was sleeping on my soft bed, dreaming of my next contract, when I heard a heavy sound from the guest room. Thud. It sounded like a bag of cement falling on the floor. I jumped up from my bed. My heart started beating fast. I grabbed my phone and used the torchlight to run to the guest room where Mama was sleeping. When I opened the door, what I saw made my blood turn to water. Mama was lying on the floor. She was holding her chest tight with both hands. Her eyes were wide open, but she was not seeing me. She was gasping for air like a fish out of water. I dropped my phone and ran to her. I shouted her name. "Mama, Mama, what is wrong?" She tried to speak, but only a small sound came out of her throat. Her body was cold, very cold. I touched her forehead, and it was wet with sweat. She was dying in front of me. I panicked. I ran back to pick up my phone. I dialed the emergency number, but it was not going through. Network was bad because of the rain. I tried again. Service busy. I tried to order a taxi app ride. No cars available. The rain was too much. Nobody was driving. I ran to the window and looked outside. The compound was flooded. The water was rising high. No ambulance could enter here, even if they wanted to come. I was trapped. I looked at Mama again. Her lips were turning a dark color. She was shaking. I knew I had only minutes before she would stop breathing. I had to take her to the hospital myself. I had to use the Red Benz. It was the only way. I carried Mama in my arms. She was heavy, not because she was fat, but because her body was stiff with pain. I ran through the rain to the garage. The wind was blowing hard, slapping water into my face. I was soaked in seconds. The Red Benz was there, shining under the security light. It looked like a beast sleeping in the dark. I managed to open the back door, but you see, my Benz was a two-door car. To enter the back, you have to push the front seat forward and squeeze inside. I tried to push Mama into the back space, but she could not bend. She cried out in pain when I tried to fold her legs. She was too weak. She was too stiff. There was no way to put a dying woman in that back seat without breaking her bones. Time was going. Mama's head fell back on my shoulder. She whispered my name, Obie. It sounded like a goodbye. I stood there in the rain with my mother in my arms. I looked at the front passenger seat. It was wide. It was easy to reach. It was comfortable. But I heard Baba Agu's voice in my head. If a woman sits there, you lose everything. You go back to drinking gari without sugar. You go back to wearing shoes with holes. You become a nobody. I looked at the car. It was my life. It was my glory. Then I looked at Mama. She was the one who carried me for 9 months. She was the one who starved so I could eat. Was I going to let her die because of a car? Was I going to choose leather seats over my mother's life? The thunder crashed again, very loud. I made my choice. I shouted into the rain that to hell with the money, to hell with the Benz. I pulled the handle of the front door. It fell hot like fire, but I did not stop. I opened the door wide and gently placed my mother on the forbidden seat. I strapped the seatbelt across her chest. As soon as I closed the door, the car lights flashed red. A strange noise came from the engine, like a wild animal waking up. I did not care. I jumped into the driver's seat and started the engine. Tonight we fight.
The car screamed. It was not the sound of an engine. It was the sound of a beast in pain. As soon as I pressed the accelerator, the Red Benz jumped forward like a mad dog. The dashboard lights were not white anymore. They were flashing red, blinking fast like eyes watching me. I held the steering wheel tight, but it was burning my hands. It felt like I was holding a hot iron pot without a cloth. The car did not want to go to the hospital. It wanted to kill us. We flew out of the compound gate. I did not open the gate. The car smashed through it. Bam! The iron gate fell into the floodwater. I tried to turn the steering wheel to the left, towards the main road, but the car dragged the wheel to the right, towards the deep gutter. I shouted. I used all my power. My muscles were shaking. My veins were popping out on my neck. I fought the car. I dragged the wheel back to the road. The tires screeched on the wet tar, making a terrible noise. Mama was moaning in the seat beside me. I looked at her quickly. The seatbelt was tied across her chest, too tight. It looked like a snake trying to squeeze the life out of her. I tried to press the button to release it, but the button was stuck. It was hot, too. The air conditioner started blowing hot air, smelling like rotten meat and sulfur. The car was punishing me. It was punishing her. "Leave her alone," I shouted at the dashboard. "Take the money, take the house, but leave my mother." The car sped up. We were moving too fast on the flooded road. The water was splashing high, covering the windscreen. The wipers refused to work. I could not see anything clearly. I was driving blind. I only saw blurry lights of street lamps passing by like ghosts. The speedometer was climbing up, 80, 100, 120, on a flooded road inside Lagos. It was suicide. We reached the third mainland bridge. The wind was pushing the car, trying to throw us into the lagoon. The steering wheel shook violently in my hands. I felt the spirit of the car laughing at me. It wanted to fly off the bridge. It wanted to end the contract in blood. I remembered the day I signed the deal. I remembered the old man saying the spirit is jealous. Now I understood. The spirit was angry because I chose love over money. I stepped on the brake pedal. It went down to the floor. Nothing happened. The car did not slow down. It went faster. My heart stopped beating for a second. We were approaching the exit to the hospital, but we were flying. If I missed the turn, we would crash into the concrete wall. Mama's head rolled to the side. She was silent now. That silence was louder than the engine. Fear gave me new strength. I did not drive with my hands anymore. I drove with my spirit. I roared like a lion. I forced the steering wheel to turn. The tires slipped. The back of the car fishtailed, hitting the culvert. Boom! We bounced off the concrete, but I kept the car on the road. We drifted into the hospital road sideways. The hospital gate was in front of us. The security man saw the red demon coming and ran away for their lives. I could not stop. I aimed for the sandbags near the generator house to slow us down. "Hold on, Mama," I screamed. The car hit the sandbags. The impact was heavy. The airbags exploded in my face like a punch from a boxer. Dust and smoke filled the car. The engine made one last crying sound, a loud screeching noise that sounded like a dying animal, and then everything went silent. The red lights on the dashboard flickered once, twice, and then died. Darkness covered us. I could hear the rain falling on the roof again. I was alive. I looked at the passenger seat. Mama was slumped forward, but I saw her chest moving up and down. She was breathing. The car was dead, but my mother was alive.
I kicked the driver's door with my last strength. My leg was hurting, my head was banging, but I did not stop kicking. The door was jammed tight. I screamed and kicked it one more time. Crack! The metal gave way and the door fell open. I tumbled out onto the wet floor of the hospital compound. The rain was still falling, but it felt soft now, not angry like before. I did not check my body for wounds. I scrambled to the other side of the car to get Mama. The passenger door was smoking. I pulled the handle and it opened easily, as if the spirit had left the car and the fight was over. I unbuckled the seatbelt. Mama was heavy in my arms. I shouted for help. I shouted like a madman. Nurses and ward boys came running out of the emergency door. They brought a stretcher with wheels. We lifted Mama carefully and placed her on it. They wheeled her inside very fast. I tried to follow them, but a security man held my hand. He looked at my clothes. I was soaked in water and covered in white powder from the airbag. I looked like a ghost. I sat on the hard plastic chair in the waiting room. The clock on the wall was ticking. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Every second felt like 1 hour. I prayed. I did not pray for money. I did not pray for my car. I prayed for the woman inside that room. After 2 hours, I needed fresh air.
I stood up and walked back outside to the scene of the accident. I wanted to see the damage to my beautiful Red Benz. I wanted to see if I could repair it. But when I got to the spot where I crashed, I stopped walking. My mouth opened, but no word came out. The Red Benz was not there. In the place where my shiny car stood just 2 hours ago, there was a heap of old scrap metal. It looked like a car that had burnt 10 years ago and was left to rot in the bush. There was no red paint. There was no leather seat, just rusty iron and black ash. The tires were melted. The dashboard was dust. It was as if the car had aged 100 years in 1 minute. The spirit had taken back its gift. The beauty was a lie. The luxury was a lie. It was all dust. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It vibrated again and again. I took it out. The screen was cracked, but I could see the messages entering. The first message was from my bank. It said my account was frozen due to suspicious activities. All my millions were gone, zero balance. Second message was from my landlord. He said he was canceling my rent agreement and I should pack out by the weekend. Third message was from the big company I was building for. They said the contract was terminated. I stared at the phone. In 5 minutes I had lost everything. The house, the money, the status, the car. I was back to zero. I was Obie the poor man again. I felt a tear drop from my eye, but it was not a tear of sadness. It was a tear of relief. The heavy load was gone. The fear of the front seat was gone. I was empty, but I was light. The doctor came out of the emergency room. He looked tired. He walked towards me. I held my breath. He smiled and told me that my mother is a strong woman. He said she is stable and she is sleeping now. He said if I'd come 5 minutes later, she would have died. I closed my eyes and breathed out. 5 minutes. The car tried to stop me, but I made it. I looked at the heap of rust one last time. I turned my back on it. I did not have money for a taxi. I did not have a house to go to, but I had my mother. I walked out of the hospital gate into the morning sun. The rain had stopped. The air smelled fresh and clean. I started walking towards the bus stop. I was broke, but I was free.